Hello everyone, Professor Arlene Torres here for another video lecture for International Tourism and Culture course. For this lesson, we're going to learn the tourism industry sectors and their roles. First, I would like to show you the classification of sectors and their linkages. So, the sector is divided into two. We have the private sector on your left and the public sector on the right side. Under private sector, we have hospitality, transportation, attractions, intermediaries. When we say intermediaries, these are the people or organizations or businesses that connects the business to the product that they need. And I'd like to mention an example of an intermediary, such as a travel agency or maybe a tour operator and other private sector facilitators. In the next slide, you will see some samples of private sector facilitators. Now, the public sector is represented by the government. It can be the national government, such as Korea Tourism Organization, or maybe a local government, such as Daegu Tourism Organization or Daegu Tourism. Then we have tourism organizations that are created to supervise, to help, and manage the tourism activities of a certain unit. Like, for example, Korea Tourism Organization. Okay, and other public sector facilitators. So we can see here that there are so many sectors, so many businesses involved to make this industry work and to make this industry happen, to get it moving. Now, I would like to make mention that even though we have said hospitality, transportation, and attractions belong to the private sector, there are setups or there are countries wherein attractions, transportation, and hospitality organizations can also be owned and managed by public organizations such as the government. If we will take a look at the setup of Korea in terms of the transportation services, we all know that KTX is owned by the government and also airport buses are government owned. So that's why I said that there are transportation that are owned by the government, even attractions such as the parks that we have here, the museums are mostly owned by the government. And in that case, if it's government owned, the payment, the fee, okay, for you to get in is cheap because it's only for administration, it's only for the management of the places that or the attractions under the government. So moving on, we have here a different representation of the categories in the tourism industry. It is an illustration that showcases the private sector, the public sectors, and the tourist service suppliers at the middle. Okay, so we will try to understand this illustration as we look into the different subsectors within private and public sectors. Let's first take a look at the private sector. According to this illustration, the private sector is made up of travel guide services. Travel guide services, these are the people that are, that guides or assist you as you familiarize yourself in a destination. Then there are also travel insurance and financial services. We all know that we have to have the travel insurance whenever we do travel for to protect us, maybe for our life, for accident, or for sickness, or maybe for a lost luggage. So it is very much needed for us to have the travel insurance. Financial services is sometimes there are agencies that allows you to travel now and pay later. okay, or maybe travel now and don't pay it in full. You can probably pay a portion of it and maybe pay it uh, on a very monthly basis. Okay, then we also have travel publications. These are actually the media companies that publicize travel destinations. Their activity is to publish travel destinations so that people may become aware that such destination exists, and that awareness would eventually create like an action towards the part of the tourist. Then there's also the travel training and education. Travel training and education is actually in academic institutions that are helping, people who are working in the tourism and travel industry to become professional. So uh, they educate or train tour guides and other professionals that we meet during our travel journey. Then also there are retail shops that you can find in places of destination, or maybe the retail shops that you can find at the transit route region, and not only retail shops that sells different kinds of items, but also restaurants are also part of the private sector. So whether that restaurant is in the bus terminal, or probably in the airport, or maybe in the destination, wherever that eating place is, it's part of the private sector. Then we'll take a look at the public sector. In the public sector, we can see here that the big organization, the WTO, is part of the public sector. It's part of the public sector because this organization does not make any money out of tourism. So they usually pull funds not coming from the tourist, but probably they set aside a budget for them to run the organization in a world global basis. Then there are also local tourism institutions and statutory group. So these are tourism institutions that still educate, maybe train people to interpret, to guide. There are also government departments like the Ministry of Culture, Tourism and Sports of Korea. There are also travel visa institutions like the embassies that are responsible for issuing visa to people who are interested to visit their country. And there are also travel course and training institutes like as I've said, what we have on the private sector can also be present in the public sector. So it's government funded. Now, at the middle, the arrow from the private sector and the arrow from the public sector points at the middle. That represents the tourism service suppliers. So when we say service suppliers, these are the different products and services that makes up the completion of the travel activity. So it's represented by the transport industry, by accommodation, and by man-made tourist attractions. So if we will look at the transport industry, they have identified the routes, the different ways of traveling, like by air, by water, by rail, and by land. Now, at the middle, we have accommodation, or what we call lodging, okay, depending on what you would like to use, term that you want to use, whether it's accommodation or lodging, it's the same. So it's represented by hotels, guest houses, villas, holiday villages, holiday apartments, camping grounds, camper van parks, motor inns, and youth hostels. There might also be other names for this, but as long as it gives you the place to stay overnight or the place to keep you there as you enjoy the activity is what we call accommodation. And then here on the last column under tourism service suppliers, it's very limited because it only make mention of man-made tourist attractions. However, we all know that the attractions can both be man-made or natural and that they can be combined according to the lesson that we have taken or that you have taken previously about tourist products. But here it makes mention of historic memorials, activity centers, theme parks, seaside and canals, ancient ruins, religious buildings, and historic buildings. And as you know, there's more to this one. And what connects them, okay, and what puts them together are the travel agencies or the tour operator, I would say. The tour operator is the wholesaler. They try to organize the product like they will buy some seats in an airline. They might probably be reserving some accommodation in any of the types given here. They may also add up some attractions, putting it together. Then they have a package tour. Okay, that package tour that is organized by the tour operator is passed on to the travel agencies because the travel agencies is the unit that is known to do the retailing to the tourists. So they sell it in retail. The tour operator sells it wholesale to the travel agencies, and the travel agencies are the one responsible selling this travel package straight to the tourist. The tourist is here also at the middle because of course all the activities that we are talking about, all the sectors that we have mentioned is actually directed towards the tourist. If you remember our discussion about the tourist, we've said that the tourist is the core of this activity. He is the main reason why there is tourism. And all of these stakeholders, like the public sector, the private sectors, and the service suppliers, are part of what we call tourism industry. Okay? So let's continue getting to know the industry. And this time, let's try to know the different sectors. Let's try to see where we will find the different sectors as we go through the tourist travel experience. So the illustration that we have here shows the stages that a tourist undergoes when he do the journey. And we also have on the right side the examples of sectors involved. If you will see, there are three stages. First, the setting up arrangements. Second, the getting there or getting you there. And the third is at the destination. So the first is setting up arrangements or doing the planning. So before, with when people don't have access yet to airlines, to hotels, they would usually avail of the service of a travel agent, okay? Or if in case they will be buying in bulk, like for example, the whole university will go on a tour, so they would rely on a tour operator to make the package for them. So during the setup or during the planning of the traveling, they need a service of what we call intermediaries. You have encountered the word a while ago, intermediary. These are intermediaries that are actually in between the product and the tourist. So they arrange the product and they arrange the package depending on how the tourist would like it to be done. So if you remember, we have organized mass tourists and individual mass tourists who are actually the customers being catered in the setting up arrangement. Now, the second part, once you have arranged everything, is for you to really start your journey. So, in starting your journey, you have your point of origin as you remember in the last video. So your point of origin, and you're going to your point of destination. So for you to get from point A to point B, there has to be transport operators. And when I say transport operators, you have your option whether take the air route, the land route, water route, or probably rail. Okay, so whatever means of transportation you need to go to the destination should be there, because as we say, tourism will not be possible without the movement from the point of origin to the point of destination. Now, when you get to the destination, definitely these are the sectors that will be involved in your activity. First is of course the hospitality, that includes accommodation and food and beverage, the tourism services such as the retail shops and also the foreign exchanges and other things that you need in the destination. There are also the attractions that are the reasons why you get there. And for some people who are traveling on business, there are business facilities that uh, are usually available to help them. Like, for example, uh, interpretation service or secretarial service or probably translation service. Okay, so all of these are present at the destination, and each of these represent the sector that is involved to make this tourism industry moving. Okay, at this point, let's try to see the private sector. In this video, what you will see are the different private sectors only, because in the next video, what you will see is the government. So I will finish the private sector at this in this video presentation, and you will see the other half, which is the public sector, in another video lecture. So the first that we have in the private sector is hospitality. So hospitality sector refers to those companies or organizations which provide food, drinks, and or accommodations to their guests. Usually, it can be further divided into two main sectors. One is accommodation, and the second is food and beverage. In other lectures, instead of accommodation, they would say lodging. It's the same. And in other lectures, they would say restaurants. It's also the same. Okay, for accommodation, a few notes related to accommodation. Accommodation is a temporary home for travelers. It ranges from simple sleeping places. When we say simple sleeping places, it can be like a capsule hotel. It can be like a space in a jimjilbang, okay, that can be counted. Or it can be a couch in a place of somebody. So sleeping places to deluxe suites, meaning to say an accommodation that you will be paying for $5,000 is also something that falls on accommodation. And usually these places provides food, entertainment, and a place to sleep. So the accommodation or the lodging industry is made up of hotels, motels. By the way, motels are motorist hotels. It's the short word for motorist hotel. And when we say motorist hotel, these are accommodations that are situated along the highway. So it started in America, wherein people would go long driving and would go interstate driving. And because their journey is long, they have to find a place to stay overnight. And so usually they stay in motorist hotel or otherwise known as motels. People can sometimes sleep in a very natural setup like campgrounds, Or hostels are ideal for young people who are backpacking. And guest houses are simple accommodations that offers you a bed and probably a breakfast in the morning of the following day. Okay? Now, hotels are classified in various ways. One of the most common ways is by location, such as city center, airport, resort, suburban, or highway. That's why there are hotels that are called city hotel, airport hotel, or resort hotel because they are named as such based on their location. Hotels can also be classified by rating them or by grading them or by assigning stars or flowers. The rating or the grading by stars starts from 1 up to 5, like 1 star, 2 star, 3 stars, 4 star, and 5 star. Now, what does this star means? The number of star determines the level of service and the quality or the standard of the hotel. So the higher the stars or the more stars that they have, meaning the more luxurious and the highest level of service is something that they offer to their guests. In the I think a few years ago, we would rate hotels up to 5 star. But since Dubai has become a destination, they have set up hotels that are rated 7 star. Okay? So if you are curious enough, do find out what does a 7 star hotel means and what are the extra services that makes it 7 star and not a 5 star. Other countries would usually rate their lodging based on flowers. So the flower rating is the same. 1 flower is equivalent to 1 star. 2 flowers is equivalent to 2 stars. So instead of using stars, they use flowers. Others would use letters like triple A, double A, like I think in Canada, they are using that kind of rating. So the more A's that you have, meaning the better the quality of the service and the facilities that you offer. Okay? So just a few notes about accommodation. I cannot give you a lot more because this is just a glimpse of what are accommodations, which is a sector of the tourism industry. Moving on to the next type, we said that hospitality is made up of accommodations, which we have previously learned, and now the other half of hospitality is food and beverage. So the food and beverage sector is broad and it covers many different types of cuisines and styles of services. There are so many and that I cannot contain it all here. That's why I did mention a few only. So common types, number one is fine dining restaurant. When we say fine dining restaurant, that means to say guests has to be well dressed, like ladies needs to be wearing a gown. The gentleman has to be in full suit, okay? And also the dinner is very long in such a way that the course is given individually. That's why we say fine dining. And sometimes music would be available, a very soft music, like for example, of a person or a musician who will do violin and serenading in every table. So that's fine dining. Casual dining is, I would say, casual, and I think the best way to describe it is by giving examples. So I'll be giving an example, such as Fridays or maybe Vips or what else? Help me think. Or when we say casual dining, you need not to be fully dressed. You just have to be dressed up for dining. And then there's the menu that will be offered to you, and that you also are served good food. When I say good food, these are food that are not just quickly prepared, but elaborately prepared by chefs, or by chefs, for you to enjoy the food. That's why we say it's casual dining. Then we have fast food restaurant, or in America it's known as a QSR, or quick service restaurant. Quick service restaurant means the service is quick, meaning upon taking your order, it will only be taking them 3 to 5 minutes to prepare your order, and you're good to pick it up or good to go. Okay, examples: KFC, Loteria, McDonald's, and Mom's Touch. So these are examples of fast food restaurants. Then we have cafes or coffee shops. Okay, cafes or coffee shops, as you all know, offers coffee, and not only coffee, but they also have non uh, coffee beverages for people who don't want to consume coffee but would like a place to probably relax and have conversation. So cafes are examples. Cafes or coffee shop for America. Um, Starbucks, Gloria Jeans, Angel and Us, Paul Bassett, um, maybe Tom and Tom's, or what else? Maybe Pikes is also an example. And in some places, it's not coffee shops or cafes, but tea shops. Okay, so just like a coffee shop, they don't just offer simple tea, but aside from tea, they also have other beverages. But basically, these are places that offers simple food, but a variation of or varieties of beverages to choose from. Then bars are actually not only drinking places, but a place for entertainment. Like maybe there are singers, there are bands, there might be any entertainment that can happen inside. And basically, the bars, since it's for entertainment, what they sell is alcoholic beverages with some non-alcoholic beverages, together with a few food that goes well with alcohol or with juices. Okay, so as I've said, it's not limited to this type. There's more. If you want to get to know more, feel free to search it, and you're going to find a lot more of examples for food and beverage establishments. Moving on, we have the transportation. So, transportation is the one responsible for moving the travelers, and it is usually categorized as air, water, road, and rail. So, transport is acknowledged as one of the most significant factors in contributing to the international development of tourism. So, every thing is represented here, okay? Except water. Yeah, except water. Moving on, so transportation provides the essential link between tourism origin and the destination areas. It also helps to facilitate the movement of travelers either for leisure or for business. And here we have a table of the various types of transportation modes. So we have air, water, road, and rail. For air, we have different routes, or we have different regions, such as domestic. An example there is from Gimpo to Ulsan. Regional can be from Gimhe to Jeju, or international may be from from Incheon to San Francisco. Then water is represented by ferry and by cruise. When we say ferry, or these are the water transportation, there's more actually, but I made it simple by saying ferry and cruise. Then for road, you have the coach, or you have the buses and private cars. And then for rail, just like air routes, it has also several regions, several geographic boundaries, such as domestic, regional, or international. For domestic, it can be from Seoul to Busan. For regional, it can be it's China, Hong Kong to Guangzhou. And for international, it can be from China, which is Beijing, to Moscow or Russia. Air transport is, in general, provides different classes of services on board, like the first, business, and economy class. So this is an example of a first class. So first class travelers enjoy the privacy of their own private cabin. So if you see the leg space, you see also the distance from the next passenger. So that's why we can say that there's privacy, and it's a cabin because you have your private place with seats that can be converted into flat beds. So it's a seat initially, but if you want to stretch it, it will become a bed to make you more comfortable during your flight. And here, there's plenty of good food, in flight entertainment, and personal video screens provided for individual passengers. The first class travelers also have the privilege to use the airport lounges that are provided for VIPs, such as those flying first class. Another type of the air seat or the airline seat is business. Business class travelers have wide, comfortable seats with plenty of leg room. So if you will see, it's a little bigger. Also, instead of three chairs, there are only two. So that means to say you have a bigger seat compared to the economy. So they can also enjoy good food, free drinks, and complimentary newspapers. While here on the economy class travelers, though have narrower seats, they are provided with suitable services and meals. So, what's the difference between flying first class, business, and economy? It's actually the price of the ticket and the comfort that you get that corresponds to the price of the ticket. That's why it's divided, it's color coded, and it's sectioned. When you get through an aircraft, you will see this setup. Okay. Now, for flights, there are two types. First is the scheduled, and the other one is, we will see later. Scheduled flights refer to those flights operated regularly according to published timetables and fares, just like Emirates, just like Korean Air, or maybe Ashana. Irrespective to the number of passengers to be carried on any one flight, they serve on a routine basis. So that's why it's called a scheduled, because they go on routine basis. And as I've said, the other type is non-scheduled flights. Another name for non-scheduled flight is chartered flight. They do not operate on any set schedule or have predetermined fare structures. So meaning, if you use the service, you own the whole plane, okay, or you own the whole flight. So it could go anywhere at any time when scheduled service do not cover. So it often supplement the service on regular routes during peak season. If you are in a hurry, if you don't want to be seated to somebody that you do not know, if you want to go straight to your destination without maybe having stopovers, then if you can afford, then get the non-scheduled flight. Okay, so scheduled and non-scheduled. Now, moving to water transportation or water transport, first that we have is cruise ship. A cruise ship is a vacation trip by ship, just like this one. So this is the top of the ship. So passengers get the chance to relax in comfortable surroundings with attentive service, with good food, and a liner that changes the scenery from time to time. Meaning that you don't only enjoy the comforts of a hotel and having facilities on board, but also it gives you the chance to see different places. Like, for example, it can be a route from Hong Kong to Thailand, maybe, or probably from Hong Kong to another country. So, a cruise with an all inclusive fare may combine transportation costs, onboard activities, and when we say onboard activities, this can be buffet, this can be entertainment, this can be I would say, a dance activity. So anything that the the ship offers on board, and also shore excursions. Shore excursions because it goes through different countries sometimes or different places and would stop over and would give their passengers the chance to, to go down and enjoy the place. Okay. Another type is the ferry service. A ferry service is a short distance sea journey between ports, like maybe from Mokpo to probably Jeju, okay, or from Ulsan to Koje. So local commuters as well as tourists use this mode of transport. What you see here is the San Francisco ferry terminal. So it's actually a port that uh, is used by people when they go to Alcatraz, when they go to Alameda, and when they go to some places that can be reached by water transport. Okay, and we also have road transport that is having coach services such as shuttle buses for airport transfers or land tours, such as this one. It also has car services, like, for example, you can rent your own car, or probably you can rent taxis as a car service. So, meaning if you don't want to be with other people because you're uncomfortable, you can rent your own car, or you can probably rent your van if you want. Okay? And the last type of transportation is the rail transport. So, rail transport is the oldest way of commuting, the oldest way of transportation. If you will look back to the evolution of travel and tourism, the first transportation that was introduced is the steam engine, and that is the train. So, the train is the very first transportation that paves to the development of the tourism industry. Now, on this screen, we have several examples of rail transport, such as Orient Express, which is a European rail. There's also the Indian Pacific in Australia. There's also another one, Trans Siberian Railway. There's also a bullet train running in Japan. There's also an underground train service, such as what we have here in Daegu. There's also the airport express, such as in Hong Kong, from the center city. It brings them straight to the airport. And there are also scenic rails, such as what you will see later. So, as I've said, this is the first invented transportation that pushed to the development of the industry. Now, here is an example of the use of train and having some comfort also, wherein instead of having ordinary seats, what you have instead is actually a table and comfortable chair. So it looks like a restaurant, but in fact, it's a restaurant, okay? It's a place where you can eat and at the same time it's moving. Next is the Indian Pacific, okay? And what's inside is a very simple sitting setup, wherein you have here your chair, comfortable, it's big, and then you have your table. If you get hungry, then you can get your food. And of course, you have a seatmate here, okay? And usually they make this private by enclosing it. Now, another type of rail interior is like this, wherein they make it luxurious, they make it comfortable, they make the guest feels that they are in the lobby of the hotel, but again, they are moving. So it's a double purpose, entertaining or entertainment, and probably yeah, meeting guests and meeting other people, and at the same time moving. And here is an example of a bullet train that is Shinkansen. So if you see, it's the setup is very similar. It has wider seats. It's comfortable. You can recline your seat. You can sit comfortably as you go from one point to another. Very very comfortable and very fast. That's why it's bullet, equivalent to KTX or equivalent to the express train that they have also in Beijing. And the other one are the rail transportations that are usually passing through scenic places. And most commonly, you can find this train in Europe that gives you a good view of the mountain and of the sceneries in there. So, the reason why people are using the train is not only to bring them to the destination, but also to get a glimpse of the scenery where the train passes by. So, these are actually transportations, and at the same time, having the leisure activity of enjoying the scenery or enjoying the view while going to your destination. So, this is all about the tourism industry sectors. And as I've said, I only covered the private sector here on this video lecture because there's another video lecture that will focus on the role of the government and other public sectors that is part of this very dynamic tourism industry. And to rewind, we have, or to recap, or probably I would say to review, the private sector is made up of accommodation, of hospitality, accommodation, food and beverage, transportation, and also other private sector facilitators. I did not talk about the tourism products because, or the man-made extractions, because it has been discussed in another presentation, and if you can remember, it's about tourism products. So basically I focus only on activities or sectors that were not covered in the past lectures, and so I'm trying to give you a good view of the whole tourism industry. So we started with a system, and now we're looking into the different sectors that made up this industry. I hope that you learned something and you were able to get a good glimpse of what tourism industry is, the different sectors that made up this industry, and that you see that any industry will not be progressive without the presence of both the private and the public sectors. As I've said, the private sector is covered here, and the public sector will be covered in another video lecture. So, guys, if you have questions, feel free to write it in the comment section of the video link. And if you learned something from here, feel free to write it down also on the video link that I will be giving you. So that's it for this session. And I hope, as I've said, you learned something from this presentation. Thank you and see you in the next video. Bye bye.